Hello, my fellow menopausal wonders. It's me, Menopause Barbie, your menopause tailor. And I'm here to teach you some more about managing your menopause your way. In the last 5 tutorials, I've been teaching you all about something called your estrogen window of opportunity. And I've gone on and on about how important it is for you to know about this special time in your early postmenopause when you can make such a difference in the rest of your life. You've learned that taking estrogen in the first 5 to 10 years of your postmenopause can prevent heart attack, osteoporosis, and Alzheimer's disease. Now, I've told you all of this in the face of all sorts of fear surrounding estrogen. And what happens when you're afraid of something that's beneficial? You try to get the best of both worlds, or meet somewhere in the middle of the benefits and your fears. In other words, if you're a woman who harbors fear of estrogen, you'll probably take estrogen reluctantly. And I wouldn't be surprised if you tried to minimize your fear by minimizing the dosage of estrogen you take. So this tutorial is all about the dosage of estrogen you need to take in order to reap the benefits that are long-term for preventing those dread diseases. You see, I have worked with enough women to know how your mind functions, and many women have a tendency to modify the dosages of any medications they fear. And in so doing, you try to both allay your fears and gain the benefits of estrogen. But instead, you're likely to cut off your nose to spite your face, as they say. So, as you can see, I'm in my kitchen today. And you should know that I am not a kitchen person. I was always much better in the operating room. I had to buy this apron just for this video. I didn't own one beforehand. And when I told my video staff that I bought an apron, the first thing they asked was, "Is your logo on it?" You know, I gave them one of those deer in the headlight stares, as if I never thought about such a thing. So in very short order, they made sure my logo was on my apron. You know, kind of makes me want to buy more of them. So I actually have a huge kitchen, but half of it is full of menopause stuff. My walk-in pantry, my utilities closet, and a whole wall of cabinets are full of all the props and models I use for these videos and my seminars. A real cook would actually be mortified in my kitchen. My mother would be mortified in my kitchen. She's a phenomenal cook. She's gifted in all things pertaining to domesticity and housekeeping. And I'm not. Yeah, I'm a real failure in the domesticity department, except for sewing. Started making my clothes when I was 11 because that was the closest thing to performing surgery that I could do at the time. In any case, I'll be making a recipe in my kitchen in order to demonstrate what I'm trying to teach you today. So if you're a great cook, forgive me in advance for my limited cooking skills. You know how you follow a recipe when you cook? By definition, a recipe is a set of instructions for making something from various ingredients, right? It tells you how to get the desired results. A recipe is also a formula or procedure for attaining something. And today we're going to talk about the recipe for attaining the benefit from estrogen of preventing those dread diseases of menopause. I bought this cookbook just for this tutorial too. This is the only cookbook I own, and it's called Forks Over Knives. It's a vegan cookbook. I decided that if I'm gonna own a cookbook, it should be for vegan dishes because I'm vegan. And we are going to make vegan oatmeal cookies. And this will be my first time to ever make oatmeal raisin or any other kind of cookies. But I'm doing this to demonstrate something about estrogen dosage. I mean, you didn't think I came into the kitchen just for fun, did you? And for purposes of teaching you what I want to teach you, I am going to make 2 batches of these cookies. One will contain the quantities of ingredients as dictated by the recipe in my cookbook. And the other will be my own creation. Go figure. My first cookies, and I'm bold enough to conjure up my own recipe. You see, that is exactly what some women do with their estrogen dosage. So let's see. This recipe calls for all the following: almond butter, applesauce, dry sweetener, vanilla extract, oat flour, wheat pastry flour, whatever that is, baking soda, salt, ground cinnamon, rolled oats, and raisins. Okay, so it says in a large mixing bowl, combine the almond butter, which we're going to do for both of these recipes. Remember, I'm making 2 batches. So here's the almond butter. I'm already making a mess because I don't really know what I'm doing. I don't know how to get this almond butter out of this container. There. So here we are with our almond butter. That part's done. And the next thing we have to combine is the applesauce. Do that for both of them. And the dry sweetener. Dump all this stuff in there. Okay, and it says to mix it all up with a big fork. That's good because you know I don't own a mixer. If it called for a mixer, I'd be in trouble. I don't have a mixer. I don't want a mixer. My mother has a mixer. You probably have a mixer too. Okay, so I have to just stir it up with a fork, blending it. All right. Doesn't look like cookies yet. Okay. Now I'm supposed to mix in the vanilla extract. There we go. Get that in there. And get that in there. All right. Now, it says I'm going to add in the oat flour, the wheat pastry flour, the baking soda, and the salt, and the ground cinnamon. And it tells me that I should use 2/3 cups of oat flour. So I'm going to do exactly that for the first batch, 2/3 cups. But you know, I don't want to put that much in the second batch. I'm going to half that dose and use only 1/3 cup. And then it says to add 1 cup of whole wheat pastry flour. There we go. It says add the baking soda, the salt, and the cinnamon. Okay, so far so good. I continue to make a bit of a mess here. This is what I don't like about cooking. It makes such a mess. Okay, it takes longer when you're making 2 batches at once. Now you probably have some suggestions about how to make it all go quicker, but see, I wouldn't know that. I wouldn't know anything about that because I'm not a cook. Oh, this is hurting my arm. And then it says to add 1 cup of rolled oats and a half cup of raisins. So, I'm going to add my cup of rolled oats to the first batch. But the second batch, I'm just going to use half. We're going to use half a cup of raisins for both. Okay, so let's mix it all up and look at our two recipes here. Well, you know, it's already apparent that I've screwed up. I can already tell you, they are not the same. No, sirree, Bob, they are not the same. Look at this. Here is one batch. This is the one where I followed the recipe. It's thick. I guess that's how cookie dough is supposed to be. But look at this one. I halved two of the ingredients that were supposed to make it thick, and this one is really gooey. Why? Well, because I didn't add enough oat flour or oats to the second batch to get the same result as the actual recipe. My modifications produced an entirely different outcome. The first batch is cookie dough. The second batch is goo. Now, if I were to pop both of these in the oven and bake them, do you think the two batches of cookies would turn out the same? No. The cookies that constitute the actual recipe will probably be just great. But my self-created cookies will not. Ladies, I have exposed my terrible cooking skills just to prove a point. You cannot be creative with the dosage of estrogen you use to prevent the dread diseases of menopause any more than I can be creative with this recipe. There is a recipe you have to follow if you want the long-term benefits of preventing heart attack, osteoporosis, and Alzheimer's disease. You see, this is where women make some really big mistakes. And first I'll tell you the bottom line, and then I'll give you some details about it. So here's the bottom line. There is a minimum daily dosage of estrogen that is necessary for you to get those long-term benefits of preventing long-term dread diseases of menopause. And if you take less than that minimum daily dosage, you won't get that benefit. For my self-created cookie goo, I didn't use the minimum necessary quantity of oat flour or oats to make my cookie dough constitute cookie dough. Instead of beautiful, firm cookie dough, I ended up with a blob of goo, all because I decreased the dosages of oat flour and oats. Your daily estrogen dosage follows a similar rule. If you don't use a high enough dosage of estrogen, you won't get the long-term benefits of estrogen. So women tend to make two big assumptions when it comes to estrogen dosage, and both are entirely wrong assumptions. Both are self-created assumptions, just like my self-created cookie dough. And both will result in a heart attack, osteoporosis, or Alzheimer's disease. So here's erroneous assumption number one. The dosage necessary to get rid of your hot flashes or other symptoms of menopause is enough to prevent heart attack, osteoporosis, and Alzheimer's disease. Wrong! Wrong, wrong, wrong. Do not assume that as long as your symptoms go away, so will your risk for these diseases. It takes a much lower dosage of estrogen to get rid of your symptoms than it does to lower your risk for these diseases. So your hot flashes could go away with half the dose necessary to prevent these diseases. But you wouldn't know that you hadn't taken enough estrogen to prevent them until it's too late, right? Erroneous assumption number two. You can spread out your estrogen dosage and get the same long-term benefits from it. Wrong. Here's an example. Let's say you have an infection and your doctor gives you an antibiotic and tells you to take 2 tablets a day for a week. But you don't like antibiotics. and you're bothered by taking what you consider a high dosage of antibiotic. So you decide to modify the dosing schedule, and instead of taking 2 pills a day for 1 week, you decide to take 1 pill a day for 2 weeks. Same result? No. A half dose for a longer time will not do the same thing as a full dose for a shorter time. Don't make your own rules. The dosing schedule is a recipe. The recipe is what it takes to get a certain result. It's no different than my self-created cookie disaster. I did not end up with cookie dough. I ended up with goo. I got a different result because I followed a different set of rules. The same is true for estrogen dosage necessary to get the long-term benefits of preventing heart attack, osteoporosis, and Alzheimer's disease. I don't want you to end up with a disease disaster because you modified the dosage recipe for the estrogen window of opportunity. So when it comes to estrogen, the dosage you need depends on the kind of estrogen you use. Remember in the last tutorial when I talked about the kind of estrogen referring to the estrogen ingredient? So what were those different kinds of estrogen again? That was that list of crazy sounding words I showed you in the last tutorial. Here they are again. Conjugated estrogen, estradiol, estropipate, esterified estrogen, ethinyl estradiol. And last week I told you that they're all created equal in terms of their ability to do the job of preventing heart attack, osteoporosis, and Alzheimer's disease. But they're different in terms of the dosage necessary to do so. Why would that be? Because the ingredients from which they are made differ. It's like the different kinds of alternative milks. Soy milk might be thicker. Almond milk might be thinner. Rice milk might be less concentrated. Coconut milk might be more concentrated. I use these to show you the different ingredients that something can be made of. So depending on what you're cooking, the recipe could call for different quantities of these different kinds of milk because they're different. So the same thing happens with estrogen. And what if you prefer a compounded estrogen for purposes of preventing these diseases? As I told you in the last tutorial, compounded estrogens are not as much of a guarantee in their ability to prevent heart attack, osteoporosis, and Alzheimer's disease. Doesn't mean you can't use them. It just means you have to be aware that they aren't as reliable. So each kind of estrogen has a minimal necessary dosage in order to get those benefits. And I've put them on a chart for you. So here's the chart I've made. Don't worry about writing this down because you know I'll have a printable version for you. Here's your chart. And what it shows is that the dosage of conjugated estrogen is 0.625 milligrams a day, estradiol 1 milligram a day, estropipate 1.25 milligrams a day, esterified estrogen 0.625 milligrams a day, ethinyl estradiol 0.1 to 0.15 milligrams daily, compounded bias 2.5 milligrams daily, compounded triest 2.5 milligrams daily. Now, understand that these are the minimal necessary dosages. You may need more. And the take-home lesson is just don't get creative with your estrogen dosage. Remember my cookie disaster? That's my creativity, and it got me into trouble. So, to summarize this, you have to take a certain minimal dosage of estrogen in order to get the long-term benefits of preventing heart attack, osteoporosis, and Alzheimer's disease. If you don't take at least that dosage, you'll miss the boat on preventing those diseases. You see, I'm giving you all the details of what it takes to accomplish this goal of preventing the dread diseases of menopause. And now you've learned you have to ensure certain things. Last week, you learned that the estrogen has to travel throughout your body. And this week, you've learned that you have to take a particular dosage for the kind of estrogen you use. So I've made you a chart that combines all this information from both last week and this week. You can find it in the descriptive section of my video or on my website, which is menopausetailor.me. If you want to print it out from this video, just look below the screen for the link associated with the chart. And if you want to print it out from my website, go to menopausetailor.me. So here's the chart. Notice the green highlights for the estrogens that travel throughout your body. Those are the only ones that can prevent these diseases. And notice the red highlights for the estrogens that stay in your vagina only. Those do not prevent these diseases. Do you see how you're learning something new each week? If you really focus on the lesson at hand rather than letting your mind wander to other things, you're going to learn everything. You've already learned so much more than you ever imagined, right? Well, thanks for joining me in the kitchen. Next week, we'll address what happens if you don't take estrogen replacement therapy for menopause. You know that you get to do things your way, so we'll go through all of the things that you can expect if you can't take estrogen or you choose not to take estrogen. See, my goal is for you to know how different scenarios will play out over time. I don't want you to end up having to live a nightmare without knowing what you're doing. I want you to know ahead of time what the consequences of different kinds of behaviors, actions, choices make. That's what this is about. Alrighty, that does it for now. I am leaving the kitchen. Gladly. I'll see you next time. Bye.